Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, Guide Your Students to Ideate and Plan a School Business. My name is Katie, as some of you know, and I'm in charge of marketing and communications here at Teach a Man to Fish. Whilst we wait for a few more people to join, if you haven't done so already, please use this time to introduce yourselves in the chat by telling me your name, your country, and even your school if you'd like to. We have Olivier from Cameroon, Shakshi from India, Nadia from Cameroon. So thank you so much for introducing yourselves and for joining me in this webinar today. More people joining us: Sonal from India, Adya from India, Dav Public School. Okay, so let's get started by looking at the agenda for today. So as you know, we're going to be talking about how to come up with a great business idea and great business plan. The first section is going to be all about step one, which is business idea, as you know, and I'll start by talking to you a bit about why you should do it. I think it's always really important to think about why we are doing these things. Then I'm going to talk a little bit about how you can do it, so how you as a teacher can do this with your students in your school. And then I'm going to share some examples from around the world of other inspirational schools, and you can really picture what it's like and what you're going to be doing with your students. Then the second section of today's presentation is all about step two, so business plan. I will also go through the whys and the hows here. Then I'll go through the activities that you'll need to complete with examples for each one. This will be followed by my top tips for success in both business idea and business plan, which will hopefully increase your chances of winning a prize. And finally, you'll be able to ask any questions you have in the Q&A session at the end of the presentation. I can see that we have more people joining us. Avasala from India, Stefana, Indonesia, Saba from India. So welcome everyone if you've just joined us. Okay, let's get started with coming up with a business idea. Why should you do it? Well, there are so many reasons. First of all, it's the first step in the School Enterprise Challenge programme, and you're all in this webinar because you've registered to take part in the 2023 edition of the programme. The first step relates to lessons 1, 2, 3, and 4, and to give you an idea of what comes afterwards, we have step 2, which is all about creating a business plan, and step 3, which is actually the funnest part, and it's about launching and running the business, and students love this because it's so interactive. We have someone else joining us, Grace from Uganda. Hi, Grace, and welcome. So the School Enterprise Challenge is all about getting your students to run a business at their school. But before they can run a business, they need to come up with an idea. And that's what we're focusing on in the first half of today's session. Another great reason to do this, to come up with a business idea, is that it's a great way to develop skills amongst young people, your students. So they're going to have to think outside the box, they're going to have to think big, and they're going to develop their creativity during the process. They're also going to have to develop their critical thinking because they're coming up with multiple ideas, and then they're going to have to narrow it down, analyze them, and analyze them critically and pick the best one for them, their community, their school, and who they think their target market will be. And finally, they're going to have to aim high, and they're going to develop their aspirations. So my third reason is that it's fun. It's a bit different to normal academic subjects. It's a way for your school to offer your students something that's different, like I said, interactive and practical. It's not very often that students get the chance to actually go out into the real world and develop these essential life and business skills. And then the final reason is that you could win a prize. So we have 4 prizes available in step 1 business idea, and these are each worth £150. These prizes will be available later in the year for those who submit the best business ideas. So it's really important to keep this in mind and have this goal in mind for your students and you as a teacher as well. And in case you're wondering, the photo on the right-hand side of my screen is of a School Enterprise Challenge participant in Nicaragua. And as you can see, she's counting the money that her business team made in a day. And the reason I've put this picture here is to show you that this could be a student at your school, and your students could be making money for themselves. But before they can make money, they need to come up with a great business idea. And that's what the first section of this webinar is all about. So I've spoken to you about why you should do it. And now I'm going to explain a little bit about how you can do it with your students. So the first thing that you need to do is log into your online School Enterprise Challenge account and familiarize yourselves with lessons 1, 2, 3, and 4, because those are the lessons which relate to step 1, coming up with a business idea. Within these lessons, there are 5 activities. So once you are familiar with these activities, you need to support your students to actually do them, to carry them out. You need to give them the time, the space, and the worksheets that they need to do these 5 activities. So the first activity, which you'll do in lesson 1, is doing the dreams poster. And you can see that the students on the right-hand side of my screen have just done their dreams poster, and they're proudly posing with it. And this is a fun and easy way to start the School Enterprise Challenge. So you need to go to lesson 1 and download the dreams poster. It's a super quick activity that can be done in half an hour or so. So I really encourage you to do this with your students today if you haven't done so already. And students love it because it gets them excited about the future, thinking about the opportunities that lie ahead and what they can achieve by taking part in this program. So the next activity is in lesson 2, and this is called the resource assessment. Your students will go around their school grounds and their community to assess the resources available, because we're going to encourage you to set up a small business using the resources around you. For example, if you know that your area is a big tourist hotspot, then you might want to set up a business that creates souvenirs or tourist trinkets. So it's really important to assess the resources available to you and your school, and then set up a business accordingly. But if you're a teacher who knows nothing about entrepreneurship and even what a resource assessment is, you don't need to worry, because lesson 2 includes guidance for the teacher. We will teach you what a resource assessment is before you have to teach it to your students, and you'll learn alongside your students, so there's no need to worry. Another activity in lesson 2 is all about brainstorming. So based on what you've discovered in the resource assessment, your students will come up with at least 5, but maybe more business ideas. And at this point, there's no such thing as a bad idea. Your students will have to practice their creativity with coming up with various ideas. They can aim high, and this activity encourages them to throw around as many ideas as they like. So as a teacher, you should take into account all of the students' business ideas, as they may want to set up different types of businesses. And this is absolutely fine. You can have multiple different teams within your the online portal in your school. So if, for example, you have 10 students that want to set up a jewelry making business and 10 others that want to do some upcycling or a trash to cash model business, then that's absolutely fine. You can have 2 different business teams within your school. And then moving on to lesson 3, this is where you'll do your feasibility study. This study helps you to look at all of the ideas generated during brainstorming, which we just spoke about, and you determine if they are good ideas, if they can be executed now, if they can be done cheaply, if they can be implemented at your school, and if they will be profitable. And that's a really important point. Are they going to make you money? And there's a template to help you with this process. So you don't need to know what a feasibility study is. Like I said, you'll learn alongside your students. And the template provides all of the necessary questions for you to ask your students and to answer. So by the end of this lesson, your students will know which business idea they want to take forward into step 2. But before moving on to step 2, there's one final lesson, and this is lesson 4. So in this lesson, your students will start considering the financial aspects of their chosen business idea. They will think about the money they need to set up the business and how to acquire it. So don't worry if there's not much money in your school or your community. Lesson 4 will guide you on how to raise your startup capital effectively. There are examples from all over the world where schools had $0 but managed to set up a business using the top tips provided. So yeah, like I said, don't worry if there's not a lot of money in your community. We provide really practical, effective ways where you can raise startup capital. For example, you could hold a fundraising day at your school. So this is a really important lesson and will propel you into step 2, business plan. So these are the 5 activities you need to do with your students in lessons 1, 2, 3, and 4 inside the online platform. And the answers you give to these questions are automatically collated and put into your business idea document. So you log onto the platform and you answer the questions that we ask you. And then the answers that you give inside of each lesson the platform will take these answers and put them together into a document for you. So you don't need to worry about writing the answers and then submitting your step 1 business idea because you're automatically doing this already. And once you finish lesson 4, you just need to review your business idea document. So check your answers and then click submit when you are happy with it, and it will automatically come to us. So you don't need to worry about sending us a template or exporting it as a PDF and then sending it to us via email. The platform automatically does that for you. So when it comes to us, we'll have access and you'll be ready to move on to step 2, business plan. And it's really important to note that lessons 1, 2, 3, and 4 usually take between 4 and 6 hours. So it's totally doable in a day. If you're worried about the upcoming deadline or submission date, we call it, on the 23rd of August, don't worry because you have plenty of time to do this step. If you wanted to dedicate a whole day to doing this, it's absolutely doable. So now let's take a look at some of the examples of business ideas from around the world. So the first example is from a group of students in Nigeria, and they did lessons 1, 2, 3, and 4, and then they realized that they wanted to set up a tuck shop. So a small shop that sells snacks and everyday items. It's a super simple and effective idea. They set it up in their school, on their school grounds, and made a lot of money through this because there's always going to be demand for snacks and things like that in a school. So that's a really good and simple idea. And then we have some students in India who did lessons 1, 2, 3, and 4, and they realized that there was a lot of waste fabric in their community. So they asked people to give them the fabric that they don't use anymore and turn them into bags. So they literally needed no startup capital because the resources, the raw materials that they were getting were basically free. And they just made something out of waste and made these beautiful bags, which they sold for a lot of profit. So like I said, you can adopt a sort of trash to cash model, which means getting things that other people would consider waste, upcycling them, and then turning them into a beautiful product like these young students have done here with the bags. And then the next example comes from the girls in Nicaragua, from the picture in the first slide or second slide. And they realized when they did their resource assessment and their feasibility study that there was nowhere to buy things like pens, pencils, scissors, and other things which people needed in their school and community. So they decided to set up their own stationery store. They bought these items in bulk from a wholesaler and then sold them on at a profit. So that is also another really good and feasible business idea, is buying things in bulk and then selling them on at a profit. And we absolutely love it when students take the initiative to buy things in bulk and then sell them on at a profit to customers. So as you can see, we have so many different models and types of businesses. And finally, we have a business from Pakistan, and I really like this business. It's all about growing plants and flowers, and then once they're grown, they sell them in these beautiful pots which they make by hand out of clay and decorate themselves. So these products are very popular as gifts for special occasions and festivals, for example. And this was a very successful business idea as they buy the seeds really cheaply and then sell them on at a large profit margin. So I hope this gives you an idea of the kinds of businesses that schools from all over the world have come up with. it's hard to take that initial leap and think of different business ideas, but I hope this gives you inspiration from around the world. And as you can see, they are all very different and work on the context within the school and community. So I encourage you, if you haven't done so already, to start lessons 1, 2, 3, and 4 with your students and see what happens. What will they come up with? And as you can see, there's so many different options and opportunities to come up with different ideas. And we think that this is the step where students can be creative and think outside the box about what kind of businesses they want to set up in their communities. So I see there's a question in the chat, and I'll save the question until the end of the presentation for the Q&A section. But thank you. If you have any questions whilst I'm speaking on a particular subject, please feel free to type them in the chat and I'll get to them at the end of the presentation section. So now it's time to move on to the second section of today's presentation, which is all about step 2 business plan. So let's get straight into it. Just like I did with business idea, I want to talk to you a little bit about why you should do it. So first of all, it's the second step in the School Enterprise Challenge, and step 2 focuses on lessons 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. So there's 5 lessons in this step. There were 4 in the previous step, but now there's 5, so it's a bit more of a commitment and more time you'll spend on this step. So this step 2 will take your students that will take their business idea to create a concrete plan of how they can turn that idea into a reality. And this is a really exciting part of the program because young people learn about lots of different entrepreneurial concepts. The second reason why you should involve your students in developing a business plan is that it's an excellent way for them to develop even more essential skills. So we've talked about business idea and how they develop creativity, but step 2 business plan takes them to the next level. So your students will cultivate skills such as analysis, problem solving, and it will increase their confidence because they're going out into the real world. They're speaking to customers, members of the community. And these are incredibly important skills, not only for their school life, but also for their future careers and everyday life, really. So this part of the program offers valuable skills that will benefit your students in all aspects of life. And in addition to this, students have a lot of fun during this step of the program. In step 1, they come up with a business idea, and now step 2, they get to shape and develop those ideas further. So many of the activities in this step, involve, like I said, going out of the classroom, talking to different people, analysing data. They face challenges and they have to find solutions. And it's an engaging and enjoyable part of the programme. And teachers often report that their students have a great time doing this. So it's a really exciting step to look forward to. And as always, there are prizes available for this step of the programme too. You could win up to £1,000 for the best business plan submission. Additionally, there are prizes for bronze, silver, and gold, which are £600, £700, and £800 respectively. So overall, there's over £3,000 worth of prizes in this step. So it's really important to keep this motivation in the back of your mind and for your students as well. This adds an extra incentive, so your students have something to put their best efforts into creating a compelling business plan. So let's discuss how you can support your students in creating a great business plan. So first of all, as a teacher, you need to log on to your online account. Just like I said in step 1, you should familiarise yourself with the lessons in this step, which are lessons 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. So like I said, there are 5 lessons in this step. Now, it's time to take a look at these activities in each lesson. So lesson 5, you and your students will conduct market research, competitor analysis, and SWOT analysis. In lesson 6, you'll work on operational planning and discuss health and safety. Lesson 7 will cover marketing and sales planning. Lesson 8 is all about financial planning, and this might sound daunting, and it is the most challenging part of the program, but we provide you with all the support and resources you need to excel in this step. And lesson 9, you'll talk about how the future profits will be spent, ensuring that there are no disagreements later down in the line. Remember, in lesson 10, your students will be ready to launch their business. So in lesson 9, it's essential to have this conversation about how the profits will be allocated. If any of these terms and concepts are unfamiliar to you, don't worry, because I'm about to explain each activity in detail. So let's go through each of the 5 lessons in step 2. The first lesson, which is lesson 5, is where your students will conduct market research to establish their target market. They'll also perform a competitor analysis, identifying the strengths and weaknesses of similar businesses in the area and how to outperform them. In addition, they'll do a SWOT analysis, which stands for strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. So this lesson is all about looking externally. So what's the market like that you're operating in? What are your competitors doing? How can you take inspiration from them? How can you avoid their mistakes? And don't worry if you're unfamiliar with things like a SWOT analysis, because I've included a screenshot here from the mini guide, which is in lesson 5, which also provides detailed explanations of and instructions on how you can do it with your students. So let me just zoom in, we can have a closer look at the SWOT analysis. So as you can see, we have questions to try and get you and your students thinking about what you should include in your SWOT analysis. So for example, strengths. What advantages does your business have? What resources have you already got? And remember, we already looked at resources in step 1 of the program. So you're already well ahead on this question. And what is your unique selling point, your USP? And then we do the same for weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. So if you're ever in doubt, I strongly recommend that you look at the mini guide for each of the lessons, because you'll find more inspiration and top tips and help on how to conduct the lesson. And so we have a picture here of some students carrying out their market research and their competitor analysis. Obviously, they've gone into their local community and they're talking to what looks like a greengrocer about their business and how they can take inspiration from them. So it's really great for your students to get out into the real world and build relationships with people in their community. So moving on to lesson 6, which is the second lesson in step 2, your students will engage in operational planning. They'll consider their team structure and the responsibilities of each team member. So I've included a screenshot from a team in India, which is called Crazy Library Team, and they sell books. And you can see here that they have a fantastic organogram, which shows you the name of the department at the top and everyone who is in that department underneath. So everyone's clear about everyone's clear in the team, what their role is, their responsibilities. So let's have a closer look at that organogram. So you can see the name of the business at the top, and then you can see the different departments. We have planning department, marketing department, production, finance, sales. So your business team will have lots of different departments, and you can allocate which students want to be in which department. They have the freedom to choose what they're interested in. So if there is a particular student who's really interested in marketing, then they can be the head of the marketing team. So this lesson also covers risk assessment, where students identify potential risks in their business and create plans to mitigate those risks. So let's zoom out again. And let's look at the template for the risk assessment. So this is all about health and safety. And it's a really valuable life lesson as it teaches them about anticipating and managing risks. For example, if your students are planning on setting up a bakery business, they need to think about what the risks are. For example, someone could burn themselves on an oven, or they could cut their finger on a knife. So you would need to think about all these risks in advance, and then you'd have to come up with a plan to reduce these risks as much as possible. Or in some cases, you can completely eliminate the risk. So on the screen now, you can see the risk assessment, which asks you to write an event or a risk that you think might happen. The odds of occurring, is it high, medium, or low? And then the level of impact, high, medium, or low again. and then what you can do to mitigate this risk. And then you can say at the end, who is the person responsible for mitigating this risk? What is their name and their role? So if you think about it, these are all really key business concepts, and it's so important for your students to really grasp these before actually launching their business. So moving on to lesson 7, your students will focus on sales planning to prepare for the big day or the big days of making sales. They'll determine what they're selling, at what price, where to sell it, how to advertise it. And this lesson also introduces marketing and the 4 Ps. So product, place, price, and promotion. And this is a really exciting topic for students as they get to design things like flyers, posters, social media accounts to promote their business. And I've included this lovely photo of the school in India. They're all standing in front of their beautiful stall, and they're preparing to get their stall ready, how it will look visually, how they can increase the number of potential customers that they'll get. And this didn't just happen by chance. They had to plan this, and this is what you do in lesson 7. So this is a really exciting lesson because it's about the practical planning steps that you can take to ensure that your business launches smoothly in step 3. So then on the right hand side, you've got the 4 Ps of marketing, product, price, place, and promotion. And you get to think about social media and how you'll use that to your advantage, emailing systems, newsletters, etc. So this is a really exciting lesson, especially for those who are interested in, marketing, graphic design, things like that. I see there's more questions in the chat. Like I said, I'll get to them at the end of the session, but please keep them coming if anything comes to mind whilst I'm speaking. Okay, so moving on to lesson 8. This is all about financial planning, and I hope this doesn't scare you. I'm going to talk about what it involves right now. So as I said, this is kind of a scary lesson and is often considered one of the most challenging lessons of the program. But it's so important for your students to learn about finances. Once they leave school, we want them to be self-sufficient and independent. So it's really important that you as a teacher can support them in this lesson. And don't worry, we talk you through everything you need to know, so you don't need to have any prior financial planning knowledge at all. So this lesson covers things like the startup budget, income estimation, cost analysis, and profit projection. So like I said, don't worry if you're not confident with finances or don't know any of these terms. We have lots of templates which you can download, which will help you, like this one on the screen, as well as a mini guide to guide you through the process. So let's have a look at this. This is an example of a financial planning template. So we have the product or the service that you're going to sell or that you've bought and you need to account for, the quantity, the sales price, and the sales income. So this would be, for example, if I'm setting up a jewelry business, I need to buy beads. So I'm going to put red beads, quantity, I don't know, 500 beads. The sales price, I'm going to sell these beads in my jewelry for £20. And then you need to estimate or calculate the sales income. So this is the quantity times the sales price. And then at the bottom here, you can put total estimated sales income. And don't worry if you can't print out our templates, you can recreate them on a piece of blank paper, take a photo and upload them to the platform. We understand that not everyone has access to a printer, so it's absolutely fine for you to take a picture of what you've done on paper. As long as there's something there, that's absolutely fine. So moving on to lesson 9, and this is the final lesson in step 2. This is where your students will discuss how they plan to spend their future profits. And like I said, before launching and making money, they'll decide how the profit will be allocated. And the money is earned from the business is 100% yours to keep, and we do not take any of it. It's all of yours, and it's completely up to you and your students how you decide to spend this money. But the lesson provides a guide with various suggestions on how you can maximize the money that you make. So for example, you could invest it in the school. Does your school need new computers, new books, new uniform? You can choose to share it with your school. Or maybe you want to donate it to a local charity to help the wider community. Or maybe you want to reinvest it in the business for growth. I think this is the most important suggestion, reinvesting it in the business, because if you plan on taking your business further than the program, then it's really important that you have a foundation of money and you can use it to propel your business into the future. So that's what I would recommend, but it's entirely up to you. And once you've completed all of these 5 lessons with your students that I've just been through, they need to bring their answers to their online account. So you'll need to complete the sections called exercises for students, just like you do in step 1, inside of lessons 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. And once you finish these 5 lessons, the online platform will automatically generate your business plan. So like I said, you don't need to worry about writing your answers and then filling in a business plan. You're automatically doing it in lessons 5 to 9, whilst you're typing your answers in. So you don't need to worry about doing it twice. And then you need to review your answers with your students and submit it as the final step of the process. And then, you'll have sent your document off and you'll be eligible for prizes. But it's really important that you remember to actually submit your document. You need to answer the questions and then submit. You can't just answer the questions and then leave it, because you will not be eligible for prizes if you don't click on that submit button. So it's really important. So we're coming to the end of today's presentation section, but I promised to share some top tips for success for coming up with a great business idea and business plan with you. So here we go. If you are new to the program, the first top tip is to come with an open mind. So you should avoid having preconceived business ideas in mind. Instead, you should let your students go through the process through lessons 1 to 4 in order. And by the end of lesson 4, they will have a great business idea, trust me. If you follow the lesson that we provide using the resources and mini guides, then they will have a good business idea. So let them go through the process and let the process guide them. And for returning participants, you can continue with your previous idea, but remember to grow it or diversify it. For example, you could add new products to your portfolio. And even if you are returning, you should still follow lessons 1 to 4 as well, as they guide you on how to do this. The business idea should genuinely come from students, not from a teacher. So please encourage them to do resource assessments and brainstorm ideas themselves. Avoid feeding them ideas because your students will be more passionate about an idea that they came up with themselves. And then ensure that the business idea is realistic and feasible within the time frame of the program. And I'm going to talk a little bit about time frame in 2 slides time, so please stick around for that. It should have the potential to make profit, and you should emphasize the importance of considering people and the planet. So making sure that your business doesn't harm the community or the environment, and that's really important. And you should also allow your students to debate ideas, discuss pros and cons, and ultimately agree on the best one to plan and run. Even if you don't 100% agree with their idea, this is for them to learn and to fail and then learn again and come back stronger. So I know it's really hard as a teacher not to try and help your students at every aspect of the program, but try and go with the flow and see what they come up with. And then when it comes to business plan, my first top tip is to follow the process I described earlier. So you should go online, familiarize yourself with the lessons, so 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9, and do them with your students in order, starting with lesson 5 and progressing through to lesson 9. If you're new to the program, take your time to understand key entrepreneurial concepts that I talked about, like competitor analysis, market research, a SWOT analysis, but don't rush through these steps because they are vital for creating a robust and successful business plan based on factual information and not assumptions. So if you are ever in doubt, please feel free to send us a message, hi Katie, we're not entirely sure what a SWOT analysis is. Please could you explain it really in simple terms, and I'll be happy to help. Alternatively, you can use our mini guides and the resources on the platform, or you can even do a Google search or watch a YouTube video, which will explain it really concisely. And even if you're a returning participant, I'd say don't skip this section. Update and refresh your research because markets and customer behaviors change over time. So if you participated in the program last year, your market, your target audience might have completely changed. You never know. So market research helps you to stay on top of latest trends, ensuring your business plan remains relevant and competitive. And then we know that financial planning can be challenging for many. So my top tip is to think carefully and be realistic. Encourage your students to think item by item, going into detail about costs and income. And don't just generalize, specify each item with its costs to increase accuracy. So like I said, in my example about the jewelry business and the beads, if you bought 500 beads, then you should put that to increase accuracy and not to generalize. And in the marketing aspect, we encourage your students to think creatively and think outside the box. So choose the best marketing channels based on your target market's preferences and avoid blindly using popular platforms like social media if it's not the right fit for your customers. So for example, if you have come up with a product for the older generation, then it's important not to just use, for example, something that you think will be effective, such as social media, because your target audience may or may not use it. And finally, remember that, like the business idea, the business plan should come from the students themselves. As teachers, you play a facilitator role, guiding and supporting your students, but your students must take lead and the decision-making and planning process. So avoid overpowering them and let them take charge. And by following these tips, you significantly increase your chances of creating a compelling business idea and therefore business plan and winning real monetary prizes. So like I spoke about at the beginning of the presentation. So these tips are derived from prize-winning submissions. So really take advantage of this advice to excel in the program. And I said I would talk about the timeline of the program. So yeah, we start with step one, obviously, which is business idea. And this is lessons 1 to 4, as you know. And this step usually takes 4 to 6 hours. So like I said before, it's really doable in a day or even half a day. And if you haven't done so already, I really encourage you to get started as soon as possible. And then we have step 2, which is business plan, which I've spoken about today, obviously, lessons 5 to 9. And this usually takes 20 to 25 hours. So I'm just thinking about the submission date, which is on the 23rd of August. It is absolutely doable to do your business plan before this date. If you think about how long 20 hours could be the minimum, you could definitely fit this in the next week or two. And then moving on to step 3, this is lessons 10 to 14, and this is all about your students launching their business and then submitting an annual report. And this is the longest step of the program and takes usually 2 to 3 months. But there are 5 lessons in this step, but it's most importantly, it's about what your students are doing outside of the online platform. So it's about getting out into the real world and making sales. And then January next year, this is when you'll receive your official accreditation. So this is really exciting. You'll receive your bronze, silver, or gold certificates. And teachers, students, and principals all receive certificates. So this is a really exciting stage of the program to look forward to, and you can motivate your students with that. And then we have February 2024, and this is when prizes are awarded and you'll be invited to our annual celebration event. And this is online, but it's really exciting, it's very interactive, and this is when you'll find out if you've won a prize or not. So yeah, you can already tell your students that this is going to take place in February next year, and get them really excited and riled up to attend this event. And that brings us to the end of the presentation section of this webinar. Now is your chance to ask me any questions about the School Enterprise Challenge. I'm here to help and clear up any doubts. So I think I'm going to look at the chat first because we've had some questions whilst I've been presenting. Let me just... Okay. Bear with me. Okay, so we have a question from Stefana, and this is, um, or school, oh, is there a first part of this? Okay. All school, I think she means our school, has a unit about entrepreneurship. Is it possible to blend it with this challenge? Is it possible that their target market are their own friends and teachers, or should it be open community? Since we have our internal entrepreneurship competition at the school, which allows the students to develop their own businesses. This is a really great question. And, we try to make our program as inclusive as possible. So you've talked about having your own entrepreneurship unit. That is absolutely fine. You can definitely incorporate the program into your own sort of unit or your own sort of classes, and that's absolutely fine. It doesn't need to be separate. That's a really good idea actually, because it means that you're already doing the program, integrating it into lessons, and that's a great idea. And you've talked about, is it possible that their target market are their own friends and teachers, or should it be open community? It's absolutely fine for the target market to be their own friends and teachers. It doesn't necessarily have to be community. We think that that's where a lot of learning comes from and getting out into the real world. However, it's not essential. So it's fine that the target market can be their friends and teachers. And who knows, in a couple of years, they might, if they're older, they might go out into the community, take their school business that they created in the School Enterprise Challenge and take it out into the real world. So yeah, it's a really good way to start the program in your school. Stefana has also asked, is it okay if some of our students submit the ideas on August 23rd and the others on November 23rd? Or should it be together on August 23rd? And what will be the difference between the first, second, and third submissions? This is another really great question. So we have 3 submission dates throughout the year. So the first one was May 23rd. The second will be the 23rd of August, and the third is the 23rd of November. And we generally suggest that you submit the business idea in May, the business plan in August, and the annual report in November. However, we know this doesn't work for every school, as there are so many different academic calendars, depending on where you are in the world. So it's absolutely fine for your students to submit their business idea on August 23rd. However, we like to decide this on a case by case, case by case basis. But as you are new to the program, that's fine. The absolute final deadline of the year is the 23rd of November. So anything submitted by then will be counted toward, eligible for prizes, certificates. Did I say November? Yeah. So 23rd of November is the really important deadline. However, we do recommend that you submit the business plan by the 23rd of August, because that maximizes your chances of submitting the second document or the third document by November. And then Shakshi says, how many students can submit as one group? Well, that's also another really great question. We generally say that there should be at least 15 students in a group. However, if there are less and your school is smaller, then that's absolutely fine. And you can have 45 students, for example, or more. We really want to encourage as many students from your school to take part as possible. So if you're thinking that the program will only let however many students to participate, that's not true. We do really want to encourage, ideally the whole school would be participating, so you can have as many students in one group. But like I said during the presentation, you can have multiple different teams with different business ideas, so you can have 5 teams of 10 students instead of having one team of 50 students, if that makes sense. And then we have another question. Please, could you share the recording in the WhatsApp group? I missed the initial part. Yes, of course, I'm recording this now, so I'll make sure to do my follow-up and share the recording with you. Santosh, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome if you're just joining us. Okay, do we have any other questions? Please feel free to write them in the chat or unmute yourself. Okay, so Olivier says, please, Katie, I'd like to know if we can teach to our students to have some skills. So yeah, the whole purpose of the School Enterprise Challenge is to equip your students with 21st century skills, so essential life and business skills. So yes, absolutely. In each stage of the program, we are, you know, giving them access to develop a range of different skills. And you'll see as you go through the program that some lessons lean towards more towards other skills. But just, from what we've said today, for example, they'll develop financial literacy in the financial planning section. They'll develop marketing skills when they start their marketing of the program. They'll develop brainstorming skills when they're thinking about different ideas. So yes, absolutely, they are developing skills throughout the whole program. So we have Shakshi says, our students plan to carry their business ideas even beyond their school years. So they had a question, is it fine if they submit ideas that involves technological basis that they will be partnering with an incubation lab? Yes, that is absolutely fine. If they are about to take their business idea into the real world, that's absolutely fine. And we do encourage the students to continue with their business even after they finish school. So if they would like to continue it as a group, that's absolutely fine. So do we have any more questions? Please feel free to write it in the chat or unmute yourself. The meeting, we have 10 more minutes if you would like to ask a question. If not, feel free to leave if you've had your question answered and you feel confident in getting started. Okay, if we have no more questions, then I will let you go. I know you're busy people, you're teachers. So thank you so much for joining me today. It's been great to answer some of your questions, and I hope you feel prepared to take on step 1 and 2 of the program. So thank you, everyone, and hope you have nice rest of your day wherever you are in the world. So thank you very much, and I'll speak to you again soon. Bye.